I started gaming, just playing the games, real like hobby modern board games in about 2005. And so it was really that conversation that I was just talking about, where it was like, why are all the themes things that I don't care about? And that was like 10 years later, right? Like I had been playing games for a long time and loving how they worked and how they made me think and interact with people, but not being excited about what they were about. And so it was really that gap that made me think, maybe I could make a game that would fill this gap where it's about something that I'm interested in, because I think other people like birds and and I've been playing games long enough that I understand like how games work. Like I can do this, right?
Yes. Oh, of course you can do this.
Elizabeth Hargrave é uma inspiração cada dia mais notável no mundo dos jogos e além. Autora de títulos como Wingspan e Mariposas, sucesso ao redor de todo o globo, ela vem rompendo algumas barreiras do nicho, mostrando que dá para contar histórias incríveis usando a linguagem de jogos de mesa e passando por universos temáticos fascinantes. Em nome da Liga, eu tive o prazer de entrevistar essa pessoa fantástica num bate-papo super descontraído, e o resultado você encontra nos próximos minutos desse vídeo. Esperamos que você goste, sinta-se em casa, aproveite e aproveite também para deixar seu comentário e acompanhar o canal da Liga.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to this online beautiful female geek meeting. I've seen your list of game designers, female game designers across the world. And when I saw some wonderful Brazilian names such as Samantha Geraldini and Bianca Melina, who I strongly admire and take as personal friends, I got sincerely emotive. So it is a rare and wonderful initiative. I'd like to know if you could say more in detail. How did this idea happen? How was the process of writing, of searching the names?
It first started really because when I started getting interview requests around Wingspan in 2019, and just things being written about me, people would often say, "Oh, you're one of the only women designing board games. This is super uncommon." And it is true that women are far less common than men in board game design, but it is not true that there are no women designing board games.
Yeah, right? That's right.
There are a lot of board game designers, so both things can be. So I really wanted to help get the word out there about how many women there are who are designing games. How did I do it? I asked on Twitter and people sent me a lot of names. I went looking on Board Game Geek, literally just by like searching common women's names at one point, just out of curiosity and sort of just over time collecting people. And then there's a geek list on Board Game Geek called Designing Women that I contributed a lot of names to, but it's hard to use because it's organized by game and you're supposed to only have one game per person. And I thought it would be nice to have something that was organized by person. So I just threw them on my website, and it was like one page, it was a few dozen women at first, and it just kind of grew and grew. People are still sending me names all the time. I'm slow sometimes to add them. But I've been trying to ask around a little bit about if there's a more efficient way I could be doing this, where people can just add information themselves. And again, I don't want to just reinvent the wheel that Board Game Geek already has for information, but I think when you're looking by person, it's a different type of information, and so yeah, I have the same emotional reaction that you do looking at the list, because when I go to events, so often I am still, there are not that many women, and it feels a little lonely. And so it's really nice to see the big list.
How hard it was to find names from some parts of the globe?
That's a really good question. And for certain areas, I think it's really been like, I think the Brazilian women that I learned about were because someone sent me those names. It's not because they're well known in the United States, right? And the same with a lot of the Asian women. Like the markets are not talking to each other. And so there are these games that have come out in Brazil that we haven't seen. There are games that people are making in Indonesia that we haven't seen.
Yeah,
But women are doing this all over the place.
Did any of these names catch your attention specifically? Did you play some new game that you didn't knew before the list, or not yet?
Oh, that's a good question. There are a few that I saw that I haven't played, but that I was like, wow, that is a really good example of like why you want a diversity of people to be making board games. So there's a game called Arranged by a woman who's originally from Pakistan, I think, that's about avoiding the people who are trying to arrange your marriage.
Wow, wow.
It is a game that would only be made by a woman, I think. And
Yes.
it's just such a great example of when you bring more people into the community, you get all of these different viewpoints.
Yes, yes.
Right? Like that was made because she is from where she is from, and because she is a woman and she had had these experiences and she wanted to communicate them in a way that would engage people.
I'd like to say that your work in game design and yourself, not only as a designer, but as a voice in board games world, which takes position and express some very important subjects around, playing, producing, being a part of the hobby, are very inspiring to us all and a reference for the very foundation of the Liga Brasileira de Mulheres Tabuleiristas.
Oh.
I need to ask you if you intend to involve some, how can I say, some social subjects in the themes of your future games. Maybe would it be possible, would be interesting for you?
Yeah, possibly. I don't have any specific, I'm such a nature geek. Like those are the things that really get my mind going, as much as I also engage with all of these political, social topics. For some reason, when I'm thinking about board games, maybe just because I think they're more fun for people to, if you're like sitting down and wanting to have fun.
Yes, beautiful. So can you tell us a little more about this connection between your love of nature and the board games universe and the game design universe?
Yeah, I mean, I think the connection really started because I was playing lots of more traditional Euro games with all their themes of trains and castles and things. Literally with my friends one night, we were like, why are all of the games about these things that we do not care anything about? And so it went from there. My husband was like, what if there was Race for the Galaxy, but with birds or something like that? And I was like, okay, yeah, what if?
When and how do these specific things become chosen as the ideas should or deserve to become a game? For example, I see your love of nature, but why the birds? For example, why the mariposas? Can you tell us?
Yeah,
please?
yeah. Why birds? I don't know. I mean, I am actively a birder. Like out of the things in nature that I enjoy, that is one of the things. So that's part of it. And just knowing enough about the diversity and sort of the dynamics of that part of nature to be able to explore that in a board game, I guess. Although I still had to do lots of research when I was pulling together all the information for the cards, but I knew enough to be able to get started. And I think the same is true with the monarch butterflies. I just think it's an amazing story. And I had been to some of the reserves in Mexico where they go in the winter. So I knew that story. And and that trip to Mexico was actually many, many years before I worked on the game. And then there's a novel by Barbara Kingsolver called Flight Behavior that's about the monarchs and climate change and its effect on the monarchs. And so it was when I read that book, and I was like, oh, this could be a game. And like a lot of times for me, there's just this initial spark of the story I want to tell, and that combined with some mechanic where I can see the core of what the game would be and how it would work. And then it's a lot of work to then make it actually work. But it's sort of the theme and mechanics together. If I have that initial spark of telling this story and how I would tell it, then I can go from there.
Wow, beautiful. It shows a very deep relation between games and other expressions of culture, as literature, for example. I personally think that games could be a tool to share stories such as literature, the cinema. It's not so popular because games are mostly seen as products and that's it. But this story proves, at least for me, that it could be much, much more. We have this project to publish at least a game, and if you don't mind to share a tip to the girls and women in Brazil who want to start as game designers.
Just playtest as much as you can. I know that's been really hard with the pandemic. I don't know what your situation is right now, but people are playtesting online a lot, which has not worked great for me. But if that works for you, or if you have, a group of friends that you can get together with, and you just have to push through the feeling of fear of showing your work to other people and what they'll think of it. If you can find other designers to play with, they'll understand that all games start out really bad and only get better through playtesting. And so that can be less scary to play with them, because you know that they won't think worse of you for starting with a bad game. But the other thing that testing with other designers gives you is that you find people, number one, who you can trade favors, right? So I'll play test your game if you'll play test my game. And then it's not that you're asking a big favor of your friends all of the time to play your unfinished game.
Yes.
Which can really be a lot. Like, you can only ask your friends to play so many times before they want to play a published game, right? But also other designers are just thinking at the next level about what makes games work and how to make things work better in your game. And you can think through that better. Whereas I found, at least playing with just my friends, that a lot of times they're like, oh, that's great, you made a thing. It's great.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Not helpful. Like,
yes.
You want the negative feedback. You need the criticism to make your game better. Someone saying, oh, you made the thing. Like, that doesn't actually help your game get better. Oh, good.
But do you think this is a gender issue, a gender question? Do you think with this is different? Is it at least a bit different with men? To be criticized.
Maybe. I don't know. I know that there is some work out there saying that women are more likely to experience what we call imposter syndrome. Does that translate into Portuguese?
Yes.
that feeling that you don't deserve to be doing what you're doing, or you're not good enough, that you don't know what you're doing. There's evidence that women experience that more, and that more men are likely to just, go forth out into the world and do their thing and not care that they're not qualified. So that there's definitely an element of that, I think.
Yes. So what do you think personally could be made to change it?
I mean, one of the things I try to point out to people when they say, "Oh, I don't know anything about game design," I say, "You know exactly as much as I knew when I started working on Wingspan, which was zero." Zero. I was a gamer. I knew a lot about games from playing them, but I knew nothing about how to actually design a game. And it took time. You can't expect your first draft to be a great game. It took me a lot of time, many, probably hundreds of iterations to make Wingspan. But you can do it, and the process can be fun. For me, the process of seeing something get better, taking something that is barely working and playing it and having ideas to make it better, and playing it again and having ideas to make it better. Like, that is a very satisfying process to me. So I think the people who succeed are people who can tolerate that process, who don't get discouraged, because you might just make it a little bit better each time, and it takes a lot of times. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start where you're at, and almost zero board game designers have any sort of formal education in how to design a game. Everyone just figures it out.
Wow. Unfortunately, we are getting closer to the end of this wonderful conversation. I can't help but ask, what are you working on at the moment? Can you talk about your current projects? Are there plans for new games? Something like that?
Yeah, right now I've been working on the next Wingspan expansion.
Wow.
Yeah. On Kickstarter, we have a tiny little expansion for my game Tussie Mussie, which is a little 18-card game about flowers. By the time this goes out into the world, the Kickstarter may be done then. But that's something I have going on. I've been talking to the guy who is the developer on Mariposas. We've been talking about a new game.
Nice, I love it.
Yeah, so I've got some things in the works. Like I said, it's the pandemic was really hard for me because I really don't like playtesting online. Like I really get a lot out of watching people's faces and how they physically interact with the game, and yeah, so I'm really looking forward to getting back to in-person, which here I think could be soon.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah, it's very hard because, well, it was all about an offline hobby. Board games are good because it's offline. It's not about virtual connections only.
Right.
So the pandemic came and, well, it became online too. So it's very hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
What's your inspiration message to the women and girls in the board games? What would you like to say to encourage them?
I have a lot of hope that things are getting better quickly, that more women are feeling comfortable playing games in public. I think women have always been, at least my experience in the United States, is that women have always been playing games, but mostly just at home with friends. And part of the inequality that we see is what's happening at public events.
Yes.
Although, probably still more men, even in private. But at public events, it's been really, really heavily dominated by men. And then design has been really, really heavily dominated by men. I think we are seeing that change quickly. And I think that the more active we are in promoting that and making it visible and talking about why that's important, the more quickly it will change. I think just things like talking about the women who are designing games makes the next generation of women who might not have thought about it to consider that that's a thing that they could do. I mean, I still remember the day that I realized that people design board games, right? Like,
Right.
they don't
That's
just
right.
sort of appear out of nowhere. That's like a person had to do
Yes.
that.
Yes, I see.
And if women can imagine themselves doing that because they're seeing other women do it, I think that will help things change more quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. It was amazing, very inspiring for me and for us, of course. Well, hope to keep in touch with you.
Wonderful,
And
yeah.
well, I hope we can do more of this in the near future, and I hope one day we can do something like this in person. So
That would be
thank you.
amazing. Girl, that would be wonderful, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, any other comments would you like to share?
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. It's so special, and because of women like you. So thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Have you ever been to Brazil?
No, I would love to come sometime.
Oh my God, you're so welcome to come anytime. Well, in that case, I'll start planning the party to invite you directly in the future.